Well, hello, everyone. Ron Gerber with Angelbeat. So glad to have Martin Holste, who is the field global CTO for cloud and AI with Trellix. Now, much like Angelbeat, where I get questions about the name Angelbeat. By the way, we came up with it because we used to do a lot of work with angel investors. I wrote for the New York Times in technology. That was about 25 years ago. Along the way, we also did lots of events. And then after a year of doing angel investing in journalism, we put all our attention on Angelbeat events, but the name stuck. So before we go into Martin's background and all the great things that Trellix is doing, I've really asked him to share his insights as to what are the big security vulnerabilities for 2024 that you have to focus on. Maybe you could start with Martin, the origins of Trellix.
Absolutely. So Trellix is the combination of McAfee Enterprise and FireEye. We merged almost 2 years ago. And, I told them to use McFire as the name, but they didn't listen to me. They said, no, we have to have something better. But the big part about Trellix is that we're living security. We work with customers to organically figure out what they need for their solutions. And the word Trellix actually comes from the word trellis, which is a structure that plants use to grow on. And that's really how we see our role is being that foundation that customers can use to organically grow their security program around.
Got it. So it's the whole mindset of complementing what organizations already have in place and making it better.
That's right.
Got it. And what is your particular role? It's very customer facing, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yeah, the thing I love most about my job is working with customers. I'm the field CTO for AI and cloud. I've been doing that role for over 5 years now, and along the way, working with a lot of technical people at Trellix and helping on our strategy there. So started by building out a lot of the cloud technologies that we have there, and now I work with a lot of our teams on our AI strategy as well.
So you probably have a very good role because on one hand, you were trying to understand what customers need and work more closely internally with product development teams. And now knowing what you've built correctly, you can help articulate the value and benefits of that to external organizations around the globe.
Yep, that's right. And that's what I find so enjoyable about is being able to talk to both sides, both our technical folks within Trellix and then also all the different customers that we have and our partners, and really making sure that everybody's working together.
Well, judging by your title, cloud and AI are clearly the two biggest issues out there. Maybe you just explain when you're talking with customers, when they're trying to figure out, okay, Martin, one of the smartest people in cybersecurity, what else is out there? Where should we devote our resources? What are the big emerging threats out there? Maybe you could share some of the top 3 or 5 concerns that people need to be aware of. That, by the way, you should listen to Martin at a future Angelbeat webinar or go to the Trellix website to get more details on it.
Yeah, well, the hard part about security is that you can't stop doing the protections that you've had in place because the bad guys are really just adding on. They're not stopping the prior attacks. So, anyone can tell you that, left an S3 bucket that was insecure in public or had a website that was vulnerable. Attackers will still find those things. They haven't stopped looking for all the old vulnerabilities. So it's really a cumulative process. So in addition to all the old stuff, now that you have a lot of newer things to worry about, and especially around AI, as I'm finding. So AI is both a good thing and a bad thing for defenders. It can really help out defenders, and we have a lot to talk about there. But it also helps attackers do things that they couldn't do before. And there's a lot of examples out there. So one example is simply just better phishing emails. I think a lot of people have been talking about that. That's kind of self-evident and obvious that attackers don't really have to worry about spelling and grammar and different languages. But what I am more concerned about is the fact that when we talk about languages, that also includes programming languages. And so now attackers can be proficient in languages that they weren't before from a programming perspective, which means that exploits are easier for them to write. It also means that they get into an environment. Let's say that they're able to get an account on a mainframe, but they don't speak COBOL. Well, AI writes COBOL just fine. So they're
Yeah.
able to, figure out what COBOL is running on the mainframe, write their own COBOL, things that they would never have been able to do before. Now they suddenly have the ability to do that. And so it really just raises that level of requirement on the defender side, because suddenly attackers have to execute a lot less effort to achieve their goals than they used to.
Okay. Well, that's a scary proposition, but it also goes to show, probably much like your experience several years ago, cloud being, let's call it, a new technology 5, 10 years ago, everyone embraced it and recognized that it opened up new threat vulnerabilities. I think what we're seeing with generative AI is a similar dynamic. Organizations are pushing full speed ahead. They see all the productivity gains, the efficiencies, but as you mentioned, it does create new threat vulnerabilities that have to be protected, which is where Trellix comes into play.
That's right. Yeah, just as we saw the emerging technology of cloud 5 years ago really changed the way that people had to, create new products and create solutions and figure out how to do that effectively on cloud. Now we're seeing that same sort of shift on AI. So all the productivity gains, but vulnerabilities that cloud added are now what we're seeing on the AI side as well.
Now, when you look at a company the size and scope of Trellix, with all the history of McAfee Enterprise, all the great reputation of FireEye, there are many things you can do. And I'm assuming, and maybe you could articulate that to organizations, the great things about, and I know this from your talks, is that Trellix, we have so many capabilities. It's almost like a laundry list of all the things we can do. You can almost use Trellix and no one else. But the good thing is about the mindset, as you've articulated with Trellix, you can pick and choose certain functionalities. You may be perfectly comfortable with your anti-spam, your firewall architecture, your current XDR solutions. And even if you're not currently a Trellix customer, your solution can be a very cost-effective, easily deployed overlay on top of that, where again, as the complexity of cybersecurity, defense in depth is growing exponentially, as you've got to worry about private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, Anthropic, AWS, generative AI, Open AI, Microsoft, generative AI, Google Bard AI, in addition to normal vulnerabilities like, oh my God, or you still have some old Windows 7 machines running out there, or Windows 10 that you haven't gotten rid of, and those are no longer being maintained by Microsoft. So if you don't take the normal detailed actions, the basic blocking and tackling to address legacy and technical debt, you're going to be exposed. But getting back to this notion of Trellix having a broad array of solutions that can fill voids to help you address these new vulnerabilities, it could also simultaneously just fall right into place with existing solutions. So if I'm a CSO saying, I like my stuff, I don't want to train my staff, it's good, but I need Trellix for other areas, you and your team can make it so it's a seamless integration and implementation.
Right. That's exactly it. And that's why we founded it on Open XDR. So we meet the customer where they're at. If they're happy with their endpoint product, great. We have lots that we add around that. If it's snapping in our email and bringing all that together, that's fine too. And some customers just want some of our interesting integrations that we have with partners. And they say, you know what, I need telemetry from my backup software and I need to bring that into my current XDR. And we say, no problem. So it really just depends on what the customer need is. And that's what's been so exciting and why we think of this as that concept of a trellis, that we do meet the customer where they're at and we can support them in whatever their need is.
Got it. So we encourage everyone to follow up with Trellix. Now you know the underlying story, the plant analogy. I'm sure there's another story on how your branding agency came up with plants as an analogy, but that's a little bit above my pay grade. I'm the one that came up with Angelbeat. I'll tell you a funny story about names. Someone told me that I should start up devilbeat.com because in the world of the dark web, there are people putting together events and webinars training cyber criminals on exactly what Martin referred to, which is how can you deploy ransomware as a service, How can you take advantage of ChatGPT showing you how to write code on COBOL to enable you to have a zero-day attack or a Trojan horse planted within these older legacy systems? This is the world we live in, and encourage everyone to come to an Angelbeat event, but just as importantly, talk to Martin, talk with your folks from Trellix, and as this technology landscape with generative AI is actually a more disruptive force than cloud has been as far as all of your technology, because it's just going to open everything up for grabs. You're not going to know what content is real and not. I mean, it's a very exciting but a very dangerous situation. You want to be aware there's so much regulations that are going to be implemented sooner than later. Just this week, we're recording this in the beginning of November. Just yesterday, President Biden signed new AI executive authorizations that are calling for much greater government monitoring and regulation of AI. The same thing is going on in Brussels and the EU. And another advantage of dealing with organizations like Trellix is that if you've got any kind of international exposure, employees, customers in different locations, you're going to want to make sure you're talking with companies like Trellix who have the resources to understand not just Gen AI, how it works in the US, but how it works across borders, because the regulatory government landscape is happening almost as fast as generative AI, the lawsuits that are pending and whatnot. So I encourage everyone to follow up with Martin and attend Angelbeat events and hear his story, as well as going to the Trellix website. Anything else you want to add, Martin?
No, you nailed it.
That's good. So now you know that I, in addition to running Angelbeat events, I also listen to Martin's talks because I find them very informative. I know firsthand that many customers have benefited from his insights, and I encourage you to all follow up with him. And you can always just go to angelbeat.com and we can put you in touch with him. Thank you all very much, and thank for listening to this. And of course, thank you, Martin, for all your expertise.
Absolutely.